Uncle Chandran!
Gehan, you quit movies, join the family business.
No, Uncle Chandran, I wanted to welcome you personally to our hotel.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I don't give up the movie
I
business.
will not, I promise you.
Okay.
Have my word. Yes.
That's where it's at.
That's where it's all at. So hopefully, Uncle, the location I picked for us is cinematic and worthy of Hollywood legend.
Okay.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gehan Cooray. I'm an actor, classical baritone singer, and independent filmmaker based in Los Angeles. While I'm down here in Colombo, I'm hosting this talk show, Gehan Cooray's Meeting of the Minds, at the behest of Daily Mirror Online. Daily Mirror, of course, is Sri Lanka's premier English media house. And we are at Jetwing Colombo 7 today, which is one of my family hotels in Colombo 7, where I grew up. I have the immense privilege of having Chandran Rutnam as my guest today. Chandran Rutnam, ladies and gentlemen, is the only Sri Lankan who has taken, Sri Lanka to Hollywood and brought Hollywood to Sri Lanka. And he's a man who is beloved by the likes of Steven Spielberg, ladies and gentlemen. You can Google right now, Chandran Rutnam, Steven Spielberg, and you'll see pictures of them at the Beverly Hilton Hotel embracing each other. You can't fake that kind of affection. So actually, and I call him Uncle Chandran because he has been a mentor and a guru to me over the past so many years, ladies and gentlemen. To start off with, Uncle Chandran, if you can talk about your relationship with the great Steven Spielberg.
Well, the relationship, of course, started when they were planning the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Yes.
And they were planning to shoot that movie in India.
Right.
And they found the locations and they were very happy with the locations. And in fact, they started building the sets there. But they could not find a gorge where they had to build a bridge, a gorge.
Right.
So somehow they called me and said, do you think there is something like that in Sri Lanka? So they thought they can do the sets in India and then just hop over to Sri Lanka and just do the gorge. Of course, I had no idea about whether they had a gorge in Sri Lanka or not, but my answer, of course, was, of course we have. And of course, with no idea at all. So they flew down here, their production manager and the producers, and then I took them by helicopter, touring the whole of Sri Lanka, looking for this gorge.
Right.
And just when I was about to give up, the pilot, Oliver Ranasinger, who was our pilot, the Air Force pilot, he said, "There you are. There's a gorge right here, next to the dam in Kandy, our Mahavali Dam. Next to that, there was a gorge." So I put the helicopter down, and Steven said, "My God, it's beautiful. Let's do the gorge here." And we flew back to Colombo. And then that was fine. And so I told my guys, "Listen, we found a gorge." And they said, "George?" No, I said gorge. Of course, we never heard of a gorge.
Yes, yes.
We never heard of this word sometimes.
Right.
So I said, I had to convince them it was nothing to do with George. and it was a gorge. And so we started constructing the gorge.
Yeah.
And we used the engineers from the Mahavali who were here building the Mahavali Dam. We used those engineers to build it.
Wow.
And that was going on. And then Steven came back on a visit to check things out. And we were at the Oberoi Hotel at that time. And we were having a meeting. And the producer, Robert Watts, wonderful man, got a call from India and said, India is concerned about the script, about the Maharaja and some text from the script.
Right.
And you cannot use those words thuggy and things like that.
Right.
I was listening to this, and as soon as they hung up, I said, in Sri Lanka you can use Maharaja, you can use thuggy, you can use any word. That's your script.
Right.
Then the guy got another call from the production manager in India, who was a construction manager, with another complaint. So I said, Robert, you can do all that in Sri Lanka. He said, but we've already started building the sets
In India.
in India. I said, okay, but all I can tell you is I can do the whole thing here.
Wow.
He picked up the phone again, stopped the construction of the set, cancelled the entire shoot in India, and brought the entire picture to Sri Lanka. That's how I got Indiana Jones. Anyway, while making the movie, of course, Stephen and I and George Lucas and I and Harrison Ford, and it was like actually with these classy actors. When I say classy, they have hit the height of their fame.
Right.
They are much simpler than most people and much more friendly and affectionate.
Right.
So it was a wonderful experience of friendship and a good movie. So we brought Indiana Jones to Sri Lanka.
And actually, Chandran, I mean, you yourself, I think, are an extremely humble person. I think you're one of the most humble Sri Lankans I know, frankly, despite having worked with all these living legends, and you've become a living legend yourself, of course. There's no Sri Lankan filmmaker who can, I think, surpass your record, and you're still going, and I think very soon, I think there'll be a Chandran Rutnam Gehan Cooray collaboration also.
Looking forward.
Yes. And, ladies and gentlemen, both Uncle Chandran and I studied at the world's best film school, the USC School of Cinematic Arts, University of Southern California, which is also where George Lucas graduated from. Uncle Chandran just talked about George Lucas. Uncle, if you could talk about why USC is so special, and also maybe if you could tell the viewers a little bit about your time at USC.
Yeah, USC actually, even at that time, during my time, everybody knew that they had the best courses.
Yes.
And it was a choice between UCLA and USC.
Right.
And they were both very good colleges. I won't knock UCLA Film School,
Yes.
but I think USC was better known as a fine school for filmmakers.
Yes.
So I enjoyed my stay there. Basically I was concentrating on editing.
Right.
So I felt if you want to be a director, you should know how to edit.
Yes.
So I was very keen on editing. So I went and took a lot of editing classes, and it was a wonderful experience. As you said, George Lucas was also one of the students there. Stephen was not a student there. He was actually he was not a student even of UCLA.
Right.
Because he was living in Utah or some
That's right.
other place. Yeah, but of course he's a giant in the industry.
Yep. He is the quintessential gentleman because only he would refer to UCLA and compliment them when one asks a question about USC, because normally us Trojans, Trojans from the University of Southern California rarely even acknowledge UCLA. There has been this rivalry. Yes. So for him to acknowledge UCLA, that says it all. And on that note, Uncle Chandran, you've always told me, Gehan, there's no reason to have any rivalry, even among us filmmakers, because what he's always told me, ladies and gentlemen, is, Gehan, I cannot do what you can do, you cannot do what I do, you cannot make according to Matthew or a common man, I cannot make the billionaire. And ladies and gentlemen, I mean, he has decades and decades worth of experience, which I do not have, and yet he practically treats me like an equal.
An Oscar-eligible feature film by Sri Lankan American actor, classical baritone singer and film producer Gehan Cooray. The Billionaire is Gehan Cooray's own adaptation of a 1930s play by George Bernard Shaw. The film won the Best Comedy Feature Award at the Burbank International Film Festival and is now eligible for Oscar nominations in the Best Picture, Best Actor and Best Adapted Screenplay categories. One of the proudest moments for Sri Lanka. Watch The Billionaire at your nearest Colombo cinema.
Very few people know that one of the classic Hollywood films, several classic Hollywood films were shot here in Sri Lanka. Actresses like Elizabeth Taylor, William Holden, they've all been here, Vivian Lee. So Uncle Chandran kind of, got his start in a way during the making of The Bridge on the River Kwai,
Right.
which is a perennial favorite, starring William Holden, the classic Hollywood actor. And, ladies and gentlemen, I'll let Uncle Chandran tell you about how he befriended William Holden and how William Holden, basically took him under his wing. Uncle Chandran was just a young lad. And I think he even set you up at the Hollywood Roosevelt for about a week when you first moved to LA yourself. And if you could talk about that, Uncle Chandran, because very few people in the world have the privilege of, having befriended a classic Hollywood actor like William Holden.
Yeah, well, a friend of ours brought a handsome, good-looking man who looked like a combination of Richard Burton and let's say Sean Connery or whatever,
Right.
Burt Lancaster type guy. He was brought by a friend of ours who was in the tourist business, Mr. Don Leonagay of the tourist business, and he came to our home, and we had two houses in our compound at in Colombo 7 here,
Right.
at Guilford Crescent in front of the Cinnamon Gardens police station. And they wanted to rent one of the houses for a period of time. So my mother was not too keen on it because they wanted it for 6 months, and she didn't want to mess with it for 6 months. We take it for 2 years, 3 years. But I happened to be there, and I saw this man, and I kind of liked his style.
Right.
And then with casual conversation, I got to know that he was a filmmaker. He was the property master for a film that was going to be shot in Sri Lanka.
Right.
I did not know what a property master was. I had no idea of what it was, but I was a keen film goer, movie buff. So I whispered to my mother, give it to him. Give him the house for 6 months. So she did. And then he moved in there, and he had then he brought his girlfriend there, and there was a balcony, and she would sun herself in the briefest of bikinis, and my brother and I we were watching all this.
This is an American girl, is it?
British
girl. Okay.
The guy was British.
Okay.
And anyway, so now when they wanted tea or something, we had servants, so the servants normally take the tea. But then when we noticed that the girl was in the briefest of bikinis, we decided the servants cannot take the key. We will take the tea. So my brother and I were always fighting. Who takes the tea?
Right.
That was fun. Anyway, I got to know the guy, and I helped him in his daily work. And then he said, what are you doing? I said, I'd like to work on the film. He said, okay, we are shooting in Kitulgala. So if you come to Kitulgala, we will hire you.
Oh, this is Bridge on the River Kwai.
Bridge on the River Kwai.
Right.
Of course, we had no idea what it was
Of
at that time.
Yes.
And so I went to Kitulgala, and I came from an affluent family.
Yes.
So I did not need much money. I had money.
Right.
So I went and I rented. I went to a village.
Right.
There were no hotels there at that time. Only the rest house. So I went to a village, and I stayed in a village hut.
Right.
They gave me a mat, and I stayed there. And there was a house there up on the hill near Kitulgala called the Rajakaruna Mansion. And the film company took over that mansion and redid it and built chalets all around the garden. And that's where they housed William Holden, Alec Guinness, Jack Hawkins, and all the key people from the crew.
Right.
And they also brought, at that time, the locals had no idea of films.
Right.
Nobody had really made too many films.
1950s.
Yeah, this was in 1956.
1956.
Lester James Pieris had just completed his Ray Carver. So there were some guys who worked on that film.
Right.
Oh, those are filmmakers, right? They worked on Ray Carver. So they hired 4 of them. Gamini Fonseca,
Wow.
Dan Dureraj, Sesha Palyakara, and a guy called, I forget the first name, Vijay Abe Deva. And they were brought in, and they were housed in this mansion with the rest of the British crew. But me, I was a daily hire. I was hired on a daily basis. So I got 100 rupees a week. But they were paid 400 rupees a week. and I had no place to stay. So, but I was a worker. So I was helping this guy and they took notice of me. And one day, Gamani Fonseca, who was not an actor at that time, he was a Thomian, so I was also a Thomian. He said, come and have a drink with me. In that mansion, they had a bar. And in the evening, they would all sit down and have a drink. So he said, come and have a drink with me. I said, okay. I came up there and had a drink. And then after the second time I went there, I got a little familiar with the place. But outsiders were not allowed. So this was a problem, this guy coming in. I was spending money also. And then I thought, okay, then I'll show off. I buy a round of drinks for everybody. Who is this guy? No, he's the guy in the hut there down the road. He's not one of our main crew. So one night, I had too much to drink, and Gamani and I both had too much to drink. He said, Chandran, don't go down there, you'll fall. You sleep in my room.
Bungalow, okay, room.
So both of us slept in the room. But the security found out, and the next day reported us to the production manager. Yes. And they said, who is this guy? He can't. And then it opened up a bag of concern. And then my guy who hired me, Eddie Fowley, who came to my house and lived there, Eddie Fowley, famous man later on. He said, listen, it's not fair that he's living there in that hut. Right. You better give him the same thing that this Gamani and them are going. So they raised my salary to 400 rupees. And they also gave me a chalet. So I got to thank Gamani Fonseca for creating that situation. Mm-hmm. And then we became good friends. And then the property master is a very important job. Now this is where I got my education. I worked so hard with the property master, Eddie Fowley. While he was preparing the rest of the movie, he needed a standby prop man. Now a standby prop man is a guy who stands next to the director and creates everything for him. He's not a set dresser, he's a prop man. Now, this is set dressing, this is a prop.
Right.
Because we are going to use it.
Exactly.
So that's how I learned the business. And I was working with the greatest filmmaker of all time, Sir David Lean. Now, just imagine, I was standing with this man next to him for 6 months. I absorbed so much by osmosis system.
Of course. Yes.
That I could even read his mind.
Wow.
So when he's looking at something, I can see he needs something outside there. I remember one time we were shooting in Mahara, and it was a dried area. It was a compound of where they put the prisoners, and there was a fence, and on the other side was green.
Right.
So he wanted to show that the other side is paradise.
Right.
So he was looking at this. I thought, right. I told Eddie, my friend, my boss, I said, I think he wants something done outside there to show the difference. So we ran up there, and we had little flowers on plastic. We started tying these plastic things to the trees.
To accentuate the difference.
To accentuate. He loved it.
Wow.
So these are the things that we started doing.
Yes.
So I'm very proud to say I'm a student of David Lean. Yes. I don't think anybody in the history of the film industry has had that opportunity to work with this giant of the motion picture who made Lawrence of Arabia, Dr. Zhivago, Ryan's Daughter, and so on and so forth. So I was lucky.
And so when you befriended William Holden and went to LA, Uncle.
Oh, yeah, that's also interesting. Now,
yes.
As I said, I came from a affluent family, so we have been to LA before on visits. My brother was in the Marine Corps there, and we had. So I knew Hollywood. I knew not well, but I was a tourist there.
Right.
So when William Holden is from Toluca Lake, and when he says something and he said that bar, I said, hey, I know that bar.
Right.
So we got close together because nobody else knew LA.
While he was shooting here in Sri Lanka.
So when we are between takes, we are talking about LA.
Right.
And so he and I became buddies.
Yes.
So just before he left, at the Golf West Hotel, he left a note for me, a picture autographed, which I lost. But he left his business card with his private number. He said, if you ever come to LA, call me. Right. So I'm thrilled to death. Now, the film is over and everybody leaves for Hollywood or London or whatever. Mm-hmm. The crew was a British crew. Mm-hmm. So the production manager also was my friend.
Right.
So the production manager said, if you ever come to London, look me up.
Yeah.
So when they went to London, I also went to London.
Right. right.
And I called him, my production manager, Cecil Ford. And he said, we are making a movie, come over, I'll give you a job. I was thrilled. So he said, go down to Bournemouth, we are shooting in Dorset. So I went by train, and I had to take a bus from Bournemouth to Dorset to Portsmouth, where they were shooting the movie. The movie was called The Key.
The Key.
Yeah. And while I'm in the bus stand, I see a Rolls Royce pass by. Excuse me. And somebody shouting, Chandran. I said,
In Dorset.
in Bournemouth. And I look, actually it was Weymouth. And it's William Holden. He said, what the hell are you doing here? Get into the car.
Into his Rolls Royce.
Yeah, so I got into the car. And I said, I am working on a film. Then he said, I'm also working on a film. Same film. He's working on the movie, The Key, with Sophia Loren, and he's the main lead.
William Holden was the main lead.
Yes.
Wow.
Now, just what a coincidence.
Right.
So he drove me to the production and said, look what I found. And he throws me in there. And so, because then they realized that Bill Holden and I were buddies,
Yes.
so they made me his production assistant.
Right.
And there also, I must say, I met another great filmmaker who was blacklisted in Hollywood by the name of Carl Foreman,
Wow.
who was the producer, who later directed The Victors. And also, he was one of the screenwriters on Bridge on the River Kwai. His name was removed because he was blacklisted.
I see.
Posthumously, he was given the Academy Award.
I see.
That's another story.
Right.
So I worked on this wonderful movie, The Key. We were shooting in the English Channel, and William Holden, Trevor Howard, and the director was Sir Carol Reed, another giant, or third man, you know.
Yes.
So and then they said, would you like to be an extra while you're doing this work? So I was also an extra in the movie, and there was one scene where we had to abandon ship. So they were paying extra money for the people who jump into the water.
Right.
So I said, I will also jump.
Oh my goodness, you volunteered.
So yes, and then every time they pick you up from a boat, they give you a swig of rum. So by the sixth jump, you didn't care whether you're
smashed.
Yes. So it was a lot of fun.
Right.
And then, so we bonded more. So after the shoot of the day, I take him. He and I go to his caravan. Trailer. And we have a chat, we have a drink, and he said, Chandran, you should come to Hollywood.
Right.
And all that. So then I said, yeah. So he went off. I thought, what the hell? I'll go to Hollywood.
Yeah.
So I went to Hollywood. A lot of coincidences. 6 months later, I go to the airport, and my brother, who was in the US Marines, he was supposed to pick me up. He never turned up. I'm in LA in the airport. I hear a voice. Chandran. I look. William Holden again.
At LAX.
At LAX. He was leaving. He was flying off somewhere.
I mean, the coincidences are just...
Yeah, amazing. He was
Yeah.
flying off somewhere, so he put me in charge of his wife,
Right.
Ardis, who was Brenda Marshall, a very famous actress at that time.
Right.
So she said, where are you staying? I said, I don't know.
Right.
So-
I just landed here.
Just
and
landed here. So she took me to the Hollywood Roosevelt and
Yes.
checked me in for 2 days till I found my brother.
Right.
And then after that, when William Holden came back to Hollywood, then we hooked up again at his house. I used to go to his house all the time.
Toluca Lake.
Toluca Lake. And then he fixed me up at Warner Brothers. He got me a job at Warner Brothers.
That was your start. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes when people look at Mr. Chandran Rutnam and even myself, they think that just because we come from affluent families in Colombo 7, that everything was very easy for us. But as you could have gathered from what Uncle Chandran said, that is not the case. We've had to work very, very hard and make so many sacrifices and really abandon our upbringings. And Uncle Chandran was talking about how he was an extra and how he was the prop master's assistant and all these things. Similarly, in Los Angeles, I can talk about how, you really have to relinquish your ego when you're in this industry.
Absolutely.
Right? And perhaps, Uncle Chandran, perhaps my final question is, what advice would you give young filmmakers, aspiring filmmakers, who think that their lack of resources, their lack of family background is a challenge because I think you've talked to me about how cinema is changing and how anyone can really make a film today.
Correct. Now, in the early days, I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wrote a script. And the script was the love story of my mother and father. My father was Tamil, my mother was Sinhalese. At that time, they were not...
Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet, yeah. It was called Adra Katha.
Right.
Anyway, so I had this script and I asked my dad, who, as I said, could have afforded to help me. I said, I want to make a movie. And he said, hey, go to school. Accountant. Doctor. Lawyer. Okay, forget it. So I went to all my uncles. I tried. For 15 years, I carried this script. And then I went, I worked on a movie and I made the money on the movie Tarzan. And out of that money, I made my first film 15 years later. And I'm very proud of that fact. And those days, to buy a roll of film, negative, was 400 feet of negative was 25,000 rupees. That was a lot of money.
Small fortune.
And also, once you, how many takes can you you know, we are poor guys.
Right.
How many takes can you take? Take one. Hey, do it properly, okay? Okay, can't help. Okay, that's okay. We compromised.
Right.
Today we don't have to compromise. But put that aside.
Because of the digital technology.
This is the age for the young filmmaker. Mm-hmm. Today, anybody can become a filmmaker, and they must. If the passion is there, please go out and make a film, because you can afford to do it. The technology has changed. You get your friends together, but the main thing is story. You have to have something that will engage the audience. You make it, put it on a good platform, and let the world see it. That's my advice to young filmmakers. Please do it. I will help you. I will give you equipment, I'll give you whatever I have. No money, you have to find your own money. But I will give you all the assistance and I'll give you the platform. Please go out and make your film. It's in your heart, it's your passion. Do it. Today, you can do it with the new technology. Yes. So I encourage all of you, all the people who are watching this program, if you have a passion to make a film, it is within your reach. Yes. It is not something impossible. Yes. You just got to put your heart and soul into it, come up with a good story. If the story is not engaging, don't make it.
Yes.
Please don't waste your money. Don't make it. But if the story is engaging and can hold the attention of the audience, go for it. And that's the way you become a filmmaker. And once it's shown all over the world, if people hook on to it, then the second one is much easier.
Yes.
And then you become recognized as a filmmaker.
Yes.
So please, I encourage you, my fellow filmmakers, go for it. Don't wait till tomorrow. Start now, today.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, the reason Mr. Chandran Rutnam says, he won't give you any money, and the reason you can't expect other people to give you money is because you have to earn that money yourself when it's your first feature film. Even if you have to ask your parents or your friends or whoever it is, you can't ask outsiders. You have to ask people who know you and trust you, who believe in you. But convincing them to believe in you is another matter. So, you have to hone your skills to the point where your parents or your friends or anybody else known to you will give you that initial investment. That's another challenge, and that's the test of your artistic integrity, because if you can demonstrate your artistic integrity to somebody else, then they will give you that initial investment, trust me. So it has been an immense joy, Uncle Chandran, as always. I've learned so much even today, because every conversation with Uncle Chandran is a revelation, a lesson in film, a lesson in life. So I look forward to many more chats, and I look forward to our next film, which will be a collaboration, hopefully. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
May I say one thing? Thank you for inviting me, and thank you, Colombo 7 Hotel. It's been delightful, and it's a lovely place. I think we should have our meetings here from now on.
For sure. Thanks, Uncle Chandran.
Here's for Jetwing.
And here's to you, and here's to filmmaking.